This is the Dreamers Podcast, episode 26, with NASCAR driver and serial entrepreneur Jesse Iwuji. Today is July 13th, 2021.
At the end of the day, you can accomplish anything you want to in life. Your race, your gender, your ethnicity, religion, whatever, all that stuff should not be something that limits you. If you are the best at what you do, people will listen to you, people will follow you. So be a force, be respectful, command that respect, and you'll get it.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I am Stephanie Anne-Lyse, also known as Anne-Lyse Wealth. I'm a financial coach and an author. I self-published my first book, Dream of Legacy, a guide to help dreamers reach financial independence and build generational wealth. In this podcast, I'll have conversations with experts and thought leaders who dare to follow their dreams. You'll hear about their journey and their money stories. I hope it inspires you, dreamers out there, to live life on your own terms.
Come on, dreamers, let's change the world!
This episode is brought to you by Dream of Legacy. Check out dreamoflegacy.com for resources to assist you on your journey to financial independence. Hello, thank you for joining me on today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast. I am your host, Anne-Lyse Wealth. Today on the podcast, I'm interviewing Jesse Iwuji, one of the only two African-American NASCAR drivers. Prior to being a NASCAR driver, Jesse was a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy. His parents, who are both from Nigeria, immigrated to the United States before Jesse and his siblings were born. When Jesse decided to become a professional driver, he entered an industry where people who look like him were underrepresented. Racing is also an expensive sport. So Jesse talks about how he became an entrepreneur to fund his dream, how he's building a business empire, and he shares his advice for people wanting to build a career in a field with minimal representation from people who look like them, and how to use your differences to elevate your career. Jesse touches on how he uses real estate to build wealth as a long-distance investor. He talks about the impact that having entrepreneurial parents had on him and prepared him to become an entrepreneur, and so much more. So here is Jesse Iwuji. Jesse Iwuji, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
So Jesse, can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, so originally I'm from Dallas, Texas. Grew up there my whole life. Both of my parents immigrated from Nigeria to the U.S. back in the 80s before deciding to settle in Dallas and have me and my two brothers and my sister. Growing up in Dallas, in Texas in general, I naturally gravitated towards football. And while growing up, I decided that I wanted to go to college and play college football. So I worked really hard, throughout middle school, high school, just to get the opportunity to get recruited. And then finally, during my senior year of high school, I started getting recruited by the Naval Academy. And I looked at it as a great opportunity to go to a really good school, get a great education, go play football for a great team. And then also, when I graduate, have a career started for me as an officer in the United States Navy. So I went to the Naval Academy, played football there all 4 years, graduated in 2010, became an officer, began serving in the Navy as an officer. I was on two different ships for my first 4 years in the Navy. And then I went on two different deployments with those ships. And when I came back from those deployments, I decided that I wanted to go on a crazy route of another career route while still being in the Navy. And that was racing. So I found my way into some race cars to start learning how to race, and then started working my way up the ranks of NASCAR. And now I'm racing at the national level of NASCAR. Since then, I've also opened up a few businesses. I've been able to grow those businesses, and they've been doing well. And that's my general story.
You went from the Navy to NASCAR. You've been doing this for 5-6 years, NASCAR?
Yeah. So, my first 4 years in the Navy, I was on the ships. I was really busy with that. But during my free time, when I was back home in San Diego, I would take my personal cars to tracks nearby so I could go to open track days. And during those times is when I really learned how to drive fast on a track. And then from there, going into about 2015, I decided that I wanted to take it to the next level and not just do the regular average Joe open track days. I wanted to take it to the next level and become a race car driver. So I started teaching myself how to, be more competitive. I bought a racing simulator to keep at home that I could train on every single day. I started doing all these different things, and then eventually started using my network to meet some people in the industry. And then from there, I met a team that I could start racing with. And then I had to figure out a way to get the funding to do it because, racing isn't cheap. So that's why I started my first business, is just to make extra money outside of being in the military so that I could actually get in the race car.
How much does it cost to get started racing NASCAR?
Yeah, so it depends what route you take. Whatever route you take is going to cost something. For me, when I started racing late model stock cars to start, the late models that I was racing at it was costing us about $5,000 per race. And, there's other places you can go where it's a little bit cheaper. There's other places you can go that's more expensive, but that was just at that level. And then once I moved up to the NASCAR K&N Pro Series, which was like the next level above that, we were spending somewhere around 10 to 15 grand per race. Each race. And then when I moved up to the NASCAR Truck Series, it's gone up a lot more.
So it's definitely quite expensive to get started. You mentioned that you started a business. Did you find sponsors at all in the beginning, or was it all self-funded?
I did find a little bit of sponsorship, not a lot, but during my first year, I did get a big chunk of sponsorship in the second half of the year, which really helped out a lot. But going into 2016, I didn't have much sponsorship at all. I probably had like maybe 10 or 15 grand in sponsorship that year. So a lot of it was self-funded through the business that I started. And that's what helped me going. And I knew that was going to be the case. That's why I got that business going, because I knew at some point I would need that business to help fund some of my racing so I could, keep the journey alive.
So can you tell us more about the business that you started?
Yeah. So the first one that I started, it's called the Red List Group. And what we do is we put on drag racing events in Southern California and also Phoenix, Arizona. And the events that we would put on, basically, we would rent the track, promote the event, allow people to bring their personal cars to the drag strip and drag race with them. And then spectators could come watch. And a lot of spectators would come watch because they would see cars like the ones that they drove on the track, drag racing all night long. My other sides of the business that I have now, I have a trucking and transportation company. I have real estate investing company. I also have an esports league. We put on esports events and give away prize money for people competing in esports sim racing events. So all this stuff is stuff that has helped, me continue to build my business empire, I would say. Eventually, I want to build that stuff to a point where it can really support everything I do.
It's been, you mentioned 5-6 years since you started racing. Are you able to fund all of your races through your businesses and support yourself, or do you use sponsors? I'm sure like some listeners might be intrigued by it. So if you could provide information.
If I wanted to dedicate every bit of profit that we had in the business towards racing, it could self-fund a lot of the racing that I'm doing right now. But we have been able to find more sponsorship and different endorsement deals. And, I do speaking engagements. I do all these different kind of things. So I typically use all that to fund the racing side so that the business money can stay in the business to help grow the business and also pay my normal bills too.
Most NASCAR drivers don't look like you. How did you get into it?
There's only 2 African Americans racing in the national series in NASCAR, me and Bubba Wallace. And when I was coming into it, he was the only one, I believe, at the national level. Yeah, it's definitely interesting for sure. But, I didn't let that deter me because, the reason why there's not a lot of minorities racing is just because of that barrier of entry with the cost and what it takes financially to get into racing. It's not easy at all. If you're a parent and you have your kid and you're trying to get them into racing, maybe you start them in go-karts, but you got to go buy the go-kart. You got to get a trailer for the go-kart. You got to be able to buy tires and fuel and all that stuff for the go-kart. These parents sometimes just don't have that kind of money to do that, especially if they're coming from like an underprivileged community. That's why it's easier for minorities to go into other sports that don't cost as much, like football, basketball, all that stuff. You got to spend a lot of money. You can just go to school and play it at your school for free.
So for anyone that's listening that might be interested in building a career in an industry with very little representation, do you have advice?
Yeah, I would say if you're jumping into the industry and maybe people like you aren't in that industry, it definitely makes you different. So try to use that to your advantage, but never look at it as something that's supposed to be there to deter you, because at the end of the day, you can accomplish anything you want to in life. Your race, your gender, your ethnicity, religion, whatever, all that stuff should not be something that limits you. If you're the best at what you do, people will listen to you, people will follow you. So be a force, be respectful, command that respect, and you'll get it.
If you've been around for a while, then you know how much I care about financial freedom for all. One thing that often gets in the way of that is debt. That's why I'm happy to announce that I've partnered with an amazing organization called Juno. Juno helps you get lower interest rates by using the power of group negotiation. It is a completely free resource that you can use to secure lower interest rates on new and existing student loans. Head to the link in the episode show notes to find out more. Sunday, Skincare Day, is one of the ways I keep my sanity in these crazy times. Jumino is an all-natural, Black-owned skincare brand carefully handcrafted by parents who could not find the proper care solutions to address their family skin problems. All Jumino products are made of organic and high-quality ingredients, meticulously chosen to give your skin the smooth results and the glow it deserves.
So earlier you mentioned that your parents were immigrants. I'm curious to hear about maybe an early money memory that you can share with us.
My parents came from Nigeria to the U.S. back in the 80s. We all grew up in Dallas. We didn't grow up with a lot at first. Both of my parents didn't have much when they first came over here to this country, and they worked really, really hard to get better jobs, to put themselves in better situations, to get in better housing so that we could live in better situations that would overall help us grow up and be better for society. Through that, I saw my parents work really, really hard. Worked a lot of jobs, a lot of hours. They started their own small businesses on the side of working their normal day job. My mom eventually became a nurse. She went to school and got her education so she could do that. And my dad, he got his undergrad degree and also his master's degree, and also be entrepreneurs all at once. It was really cool to kind of see them do that throughout my life, and it just naturally, through osmosis, got into me.
So you mentioned that you had several businesses. What has been your best money move so far?
So businesses, the one that's doing the best right now is our trucking and transportation. It also gives me probably the most headaches, but it's doing the best. That one's doing great. All the companies I have right now are making money, so that's good. So I just want to continue to grow them and eventually get them to a place where, I don't have to do much in them. Right now, I do a lot of the day-to-day, but eventually I need to hire some people to handle that for me.
And so you also said that you were a real estate investor. Can you talk a little bit about that?
What I did when I jumped into real estate was first, I spent a few months learning a lot of different strategies. I learned the BRRRR method, like the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat method. I learned the flipping method. I learned the just conventional rentals. I learned the short-term rentals like Airbnb. I learned about tax liens and tax deed auctions. I learned all those different things. I tried to learn as much as I could, or at least so I can understand what's out there. And then from there, I just go look for opportunities. And it doesn't matter where it's at, whether it's in Indiana, where we have a place there, or Baltimore, Maryland, we got a property there, or in Texas, wherever it's at, I look for where there's opportunities. And then from there, if I see there's opportunity to make money on real estate, then I figure out, okay, what method, what strategy that I already know about can I implement here? Is this better for conventional rentals? Is it better for short-term rentals? Is it better for whatever else? I know certain strategies, and I just try to figure out what strategy would work best in this particular place so we can make money. Where we do it at doesn't matter to me, as long as it's somewhere that makes money.
So you invest long distance as well?
I only pretty much do long distance. I don't have any real estate properties near me. But there's strategies that do work out here. You just got to implement them. But I haven't done any out here yet. Maybe one day. We're focused on a few ones right now.
So can you share maybe your biggest money mistake?
Because I typically try to educate myself on stuff before I spend money on it. So I haven't really made big money mistakes. Now, there's things that have happened that have cost me money, but I wouldn't say it was a mistake I made. It was just things just happen.
How did you get good with money? Is it a topic that was discussed when you were growing up? Because most people, they make mistakes early in their 20s, late 20s, and then they just kind of have to make up for that later on. So how did you avoid that?
I wouldn't say I avoided doing some dumb things. I did them, but I learned from them, So, early on, I got a credit card when I was I think I was 18, and it wasn't for a lot. It was maybe $5,000 or so, but a few times I maxed it out. So that's the thing. Some people might say, oh, that was a big mistake. Why would you max out a credit card at that early age? Well, does it really matter? Was it really a mistake when I paid it off? Maybe I paid it for a really long time, and maybe I paid more interest than what I really should have. But guess what? I still paid it, and you can look at my credit report from age 18 till now, have 0 late payments. So it's all good learning. I've spent more money in certain places than I probably should have, But at the end of the day, like I was able to pay things off, get things right eventually, because I knew I was always going to be doing the right things to continue to advance my life so that money would never be an issue. One of my goals is to never have to look at my bank account. Like I just want to be able to spend however I want to spend, whenever I want to spend on whatever I want to spend on, and never even think about my bank account. That's where I'm trying to get to.
That's a great goal. So for anyone that's listening who wants to be like you, not ever look at their bank account, can you talk about maybe how you plan on getting there?
Yeah, continue to come up with different plans on how to continue to grow your money, get to a point where your money is working for you. We all have to create certain systems that are going to generate income for you and generate income passively. And that's the best way. You can do a lot of things that are active income and make a lot of money. Yes, you can. It just takes a lot of time and energy away from you. But if you can find ways to take your active income and put it into systems that will create passive income, that's the best way to do it. So that's what I'm trying to do. The more I can create passive income, the next thing you know, every week, every month, I got checks coming in from wherever, not having to do a lot to maintain it.
So are you focusing on real estate? Are you doing the stock market when it comes to passive income?
Real estate is where I really want the passive income to come from. I have a little bit of money in stocks and I have a little bit of money in like crypto and all that stuff. I just do that just for fun. I don't have a ton of money. I wouldn't say I got 50, 100,000, anything like that into, stocks and all that stuff. I got like a few grand and I just use it for play money. I just like try it, make a little bit here, pull out, just kind of mess around with it. That's not really my big thing. My big thing is bigger things are the trucking company, my events, and the esports business and the real estate. So those are my big things.
So I like to end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions. Can you tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life?
2 books that changed my perspective on life: Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow Quadrant, all written by the same person. And if you read them in that order or listen to those audiobooks, you will learn a lot.
I think those might be one of the 2 most popular personal finance books.
Most definitely.
Tell me about something about money that you wish you could tell your younger self.
To put some money into Bitcoin in 2013. Take $1,000 and put it in Bitcoin right now and just don't do anything with it until 2021.
Can you share the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
Growing my mindset and getting my mindset in a place where I am comfortable with risk taking. I'm comfortable with being an entrepreneur and growing businesses and all that stuff. So anything I've done to kind of advance my mind and get my mind in a place where I can do a lot, that's probably the best thing that I've been able to do for myself.
Filling the blanks in 3 words or less. Money to me is?
Money to me is not real. It's actually nothing. Money to me is something that comes and goes.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Someone who went against a lot of things that people would say would be impossible to get through, impossible to break into, and has accomplished a lot by breaking through those obstacles. And then after breaking through those obstacles, was able to use my platform to help others and inspire others so that they could understand how close to their dreams they are, or how close they could be if they just follow the same steps that I followed so they can get to their goals and dreams.
Well, Jesse, thank you for coming on the podcast. Congratulations on going after your dreams. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you if they want to find out more about you?
Yes. For listeners, if they're looking to find out anything else on me, just head to my website, go to jesseiwuji.com, or just look me up on any of the social media platforms, JESSEIWUJI. Just look it up on all the platforms. I'm on all of them, and you can find me there.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.
That was Jesse Iwuji. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Coming up on the podcast this month, we have business strategist, best-selling author, and multimedia entrepreneur Tina Wells.
If you enjoyed today's episode, here's what you can do to support me and help more dreamers discover the podcast. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. I read every single review, and I'll select one review to read on the podcast every month. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Share the podcast with your family, friends, and coworkers. And if you really enjoyed today's episode, tag me on Instagram at thedreamers.podcast and let me know what you liked about it. All right, dreamers, that's it for today. I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Dreamers Podcast.
Okay, dreamers, time to build this legacy.
This podcast is for general information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax, legal, financial planning, insurance, accounting, investment, or any other kind of professional advice or services. Please consult with an appropriate tax, financial, or legal professional to receive appropriate advice based on your situation.